Wild cheetahs have been extirpated from 91% of their historical distribution range. So there was a loss of safe space when humans started practicing agriculture. And then, of course, urbanization and human wildlife conflict. Slowly, wild cheetah populations were decimated.
So the first ever successful cheetah reintroduction globally was into Phinda Game Reserve in 1992 when 7 Namibian animals were reintroduced there. Since 1992 the Phinda cheetah population has grown to 25 individuals, and that's despite more than 70 removals over the last 30 odd years.
So historically, wild cheetah populations would have been connected across massive landscapes, and there would have been natural metapopulation dynamics at play: dispersal, immigration. They would have easily come across potential mates in this large connected population. What we have now is a number of isolated populations persisting. Cheetah numbers are well below 50 individuals, well below genetically viable population size. Genetic diversity will give them sufficient disease fighting ability. But also, who knows what changes in habitat and climate await? We need to make sure that our cheetahs have sufficient genetic diversity to adapt to those changes that will inevitably take place. Basically, a metapopulation is a population of populations. So because we have all these fragmented, isolated cheetah populations, which number between 3 and 40, each of these populations needs to have individuals swapped between them to ensure that that genetic diversity is maintained and, if possible, actually increased. We have to implement human-mediated dispersal to ensure their persistence. Because if we don't intervene, then we're going to lose 60 to 70% of remnant wild cheetah populations in the next 200 to 300 years. I mean, the entire global population that persists, there's still about 7,000 cheetahs left in the wild. All of those populations remain in decline. The only growing wild cheetah population that persists is the fenced population in southern Africa. What fencing basically does is it eliminates humans from the equation. The metapopulation itself is comprised of 69 reserves, the fenced metapopulation in southern Africa. And in that metapopulation, you'll have about 15 reserves, metapopulation reserves, where cheetahs are doing exceptionally well. And we'll remove cheetahs from those, what we call source reserves, and relocate them to sink reserves. It really is a small number of source reserves, a small number of particularly fit and fertile cheetahs on the source reserves that are sustaining the population on the sink reserves.
Phinda cheetah are highly desirable animals. They are predator savvy, they are tourist friendly, they're easy to manage because you can get relatively close to them with vehicles, they're used to tourists, and also they know all the competing predators: lions, leopards, spotted hyena, and even the odd pack of wild dog moves through Phinda.
Each individual reserve goes through boom and bust phases with regards to their cheetah population. And when they're in that boom phase, you've got to move them from that habitat when they reach carrying capacity to the sink reserves. And in 10 years' time, that sink reserve could in turn become a source reserve. And if you manage your population correctly and you're proactive with regards to wild cheetah management, then you can achieve population growth. Our fenced metapopulation is growing by 8% per annum. So we're reaching capacity in South Africa. The major challenge is to identify new safe space for the release of our cheetahs. And that's proving difficult because fencing is largely confined to South Africa. So now we're having to take these wild, ecologically functional cheetahs into unfenced systems and attempt to grow their population numbers there. And that is proving very challenging because cheetahs are a wide-ranging species. You know, especially in the first 6 months post-release, they are going to explore. Males want to be around females because they're programmed to copulate. And what we find when we release them into these unfenced systems is there's no communication network and they don't find each other. And they roam widely, especially in the first 6 months. I mean, we've had some cheetahs released into Mozambique that have simply walked back to South Africa. we've experienced tremendous losses. What we find is it's just a numbers game. So if you keep persisting, and we have this growing metapopulation. I mean, we've got 40 animals per year that we can comfortably make available for reintroduction efforts. And if you just keep persisting and keep on making these animals available for these reintroductions into the bigger, open, unfenced systems, eventually the communication hubs will become established. Between 1965 and 1992, just over 200 wild cheetahs were reintroduced into reserves in South Africa, and 7 of the 8 reintroduction efforts failed completely. Phinda was the very first successful wild cheetah reintroduction anywhere in the world. So even within the fence systems of South Africa, we really struggled initially because we didn't know anything about cheetah reintroductions. We learned the importance of bomas and maintaining good fences, good post-release monitoring. Phinda have given us a very effective template. They have a fantastic infrastructure, good, well-maintained fences, very good cheetah boma setup. Any cheetahs coming into Phinda can settle into their new environment, breaking that instinct to walk back to where they originally come from. The main tool that Phinda have in their arsenal is effective management and monitoring. The cheetahs are collared, they regularly observed. They have a very effective liaison between the monitoring team and the safari guides who go out taking guests out to see the cheetah. Any sightings are immediately reported. That information is documented. They maintain a very good cheetah tracking tool, so they know exactly how many cheetahs they have on their property. So whenever Phinda has a surplus, they make these animals available to the metapopulation. Whenever the monitoring team on Phinda detects potential for inbreeding, they contact the metapopulation managers and they bring in new unrelated individuals to ensure that the population remains genetically healthy. The real heroes in this conservation story are the people that are creating safe space. It's all of those private game reserves and national parks across South Africa. 90% of these reserves were historically utilized for agriculture. And they've re-established not only cheetahs, but other historically occurring mammals, And what we've seen in post-apartheid South Africa is a remarkable wildlife recovery. Very unfortunate if we keep this model to ourselves, And it's imperative that we share our experiences from South Africa with our colleagues in other countries so that they can also initiate and oversee the recovery of wildlife populations in their countries within the context of the realities of the 21st century.